I want you to know that globalism didn't begin today. There have been various eras in the world where there have been forms of global interconnection, global dynamics that have particular specificities for their time. So there was an era of maritime European expansion. Some people think of that as globalization. I do not. That is the period of maritime worldwide expansion. I deal with the globalism of a much earlier era, the globalism of camel and ship, of different modes of transport where time is much slower. Things take a longer time, but that did not stop people from crossing vast expanses, interacting, meeting people of other cultures, exchanging patterns and ideas and everything else. For instance, I have an article on a global shipwreck, really. I'm thinking of writing a Cambridge element on it, but I need to talk to my editor at Cambridge about it first. This is a shipwreck that took place in Indonesia off the island of Belitung. And this ship carried a cargo of 70,000 ceramics from China. So this one ship alone teaches us so much, It tells us that industrial level production, mass production, did not begin 1,000 years later in the West. It tells us that in China, they were mass producing export ceramics for the world already, because the patterns, the designs on these ceramics were popular in the global market, but not in China. They were polychrome wares. China at this period of time, which is the early 9th century, preferred white wares and green wares, celadon colored wares. They didn't like these polychrome wares with designs of palmettes and all sorts of Middle Eastern iconography on it. So I get a chance to talk about the Industrial Revolution and when it began. I get a chance to talk about interchange. For instance, among the cargo are the first blue and white Chinese porcelain or ceramics known to human civilization. Chinese blue and whites are very popular today, and they mostly date back to the Yuan period of China and later, 13th, 14th centuries. These are 9th century blue and whites. So how did they begin? Well, it so happened that there was a demand for Chinese white wares, very, very precious, hard to create, with a kind of clay, kaolin, that's only available in China. But the Iraqis really loved this white ware, so they imitated these white wares by using a thick white slip, and painting cobalt blue designs on them, local designs, a lot of palm trees, for example, lozenges and so on, using cobalt from Iran. So these were very bright, bright blue on white. Well, the Chinese potters saw this, and then they began to do the same in China. So these Chinese potters were riffing off these Iraqi potters using Iranian cobalt for pigments and copying them. So the Belitung Shipwreck, the Belitung ship, which is at the Asian Civilizations Museum in Singapore, the cargo is there, has these 3 porcelain blue and whites that are prototypes for their time in the 9th century. They're very poignant because they have been washed by waves and they've been undersea for over 1,000 years. The colors bleed somewhat. They look like prototypes, but it's an amazing example of call and response across the world, across vast distances by artists in exchanging ideas and materials to create the first blue and white ceramics from China.